अज्ञानितिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Nityanandam. In this episode, Swamiji introduces the concept of Poornatva or perpetual completion, and it is one of the attributes of an avatar or an enlightened master. Basically, the ultimate state of enlightenment is the no-mind state, or to put it more accurately, the state in which the observer is dissociated from his emotions and thoughts, leading to a significant drop in the number of thoughts created. For the seeker, the sincere practice of unclutching or the conscious dissociation from thoughts leads to a state of Poornatva or perpetual completion. Please enjoy this episode. This is Sarvaishwaryananda, Nityanandam.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at those deep-seated patterns we all carry around. You know, the self-doubt, that chronic feeling that something's not quite right, that you're always sort of fighting life.
We are, and today we're digging into a specific inner science that offers a solution. It's called Perpetual Completion.
Right, and we've gone through a stack of research on this, and it argues that suffering is, well, entirely optional, and it's rooted in the mind.
Exactly. So our mission for you today is to really get the mechanics of this. How do you trace that feeling, that discomfort, whether it's mental or even physical, all the way back to its origin?
And what's a surprising role our fear of failure plays in keeping us stuck? It's a journey into some pretty rigorous internal accountability.
It is.
So let's start at the root. The sources call this the inner agitation.
Right, and that inner agitation, it has a technical name in this science, SDHD.
SDHD.
Self-doubt, self-hatred, and self-denial. And, you know, we should be really clear, this isn't just about having a bad day here and there.
This is something deep.
It's the foundational constant hum of dissatisfaction. It's the pattern that really determines every choice you make, whether it's big or small.
Okay, so let's unpack that denial part of SDHD.
Yeah.
'Cause that seems to be where the friction comes from, right? The barrier between you and everything else.
That's it. The sources use some really powerful metaphors to explain this rejection mode.
Like what?
Well, say you look at a statue. Instead of seeing any kind of potential meaning or, you know, divinity, the mind just shuts it down immediately.
Right. It's just some metal.
It's just some metal.
Yeah.
Or you approach a teacher and that SDHD kicks in and you reject the wisdom before you even hear it. He's just a young man sitting there.
So that knee-jerk rejection, it keeps you from receiving anything that could actually help you.
Exactly. And this constant rejection, it forces you into what the sources call a minimum involvement existence.
You're only putting in the bare minimum energy, just enough to keep things from, what, boiling over.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Think about how that looks in the real world, emotionally. You're constantly on the defensive.
And you're not just talking about the office, right? Where you do just enough work to make sure the salary gets paid.
No, it goes way beyond that. Look at relationships. The involvement, it's not coming from a place of love or abundance. It's just managing things so your spouse should not run away.
It's driven by fear.
Totally. It's transactional. Even with your kids, it's often tied to this future expectation of, I'm raising them so they'll take care of me later.
So the big outcome here is that this pattern, SDHD, is just constantly denying life any chance to overflow. You refuse to give more than you have to because you're scared of being vulnerable.
Yes. They're blocking abundance because that fear of giving more than you might get back is rooted right in that initial self-doubt. You deny life, and so life denies you.
Okay, so let's get to where this gets really, really applicable. The distinction between pain and suffering. We tend to use those words interchangeably.
We do, but in this science, they are worlds apart. This is one of the most powerful insights, I think. The sources bring up the story of the enlightened master Ramana Maharishi. He was terminally ill with cancer. And when someone asked him if he was suffering, he just said, pain is there, but there is no suffering.
That immediately makes me wonder, though. If pain is a physical reality, a nerve impulse, how can it exist without suffering? Is this just saying it's all in your head?
Not exactly. It's not about denying the physical sensation. The key insight here is that suffering is an optional mental overlay on top of that sensation, the pain.
So suffering is the story we tell ourselves about the pain.
It's the hindrance to completion. That's the definition. So if I step on a tack, the physical sensation is the pain. The suffering is the narrative, the This is unfair, I'm so clumsy, now my day is ruined.
That whole internal story, that's the incompletion.
Precisely. And when that mental story, that suffering is completed, what's left in the body isn't even seen as suffering anymore. It's just a sensation of healing.
A neutral process.
The body is still communicating, but your mind is just not involved in the drama. The goal isn't to be numb. It's to be mentally neutral about the sensation.
That's a huge reframing. It means if you feel chronic physical pain, you can actually trace its source to an incompletion in the mind and work on that.
Right. And that brings us to the mechanics. How do we actually do this? It's not just, deciding you're fine.
So what does it really mean to say, I am complete? The sources lay out a very specific process, right? Working backward from right now.
Yes, it's a 4-step sequence. Step 1. Pin down what is bothering you right now. Start with the immediate agitation. Anxiety about a meeting, a flash of self-hatred. You have to name the present feeling.
Immediate raw reaction. Got it.
Step 2, you trace that feeling back to the root incident. This is the earliest memory you have where that same thought pattern first appeared.
That sounds like the hardest part, finding that one initial moment.
It takes some deep, uncomfortable honesty, but once you have it, step 3 is reliving that incident using the completion methodology. This is where the 4 images come in.
Okay, let's break those down. That's key jargon. What are these images? Inner, outer, life, and others.
Right. So the inner image is how you saw yourself in that moment, maybe as a victim or as incompetent. The outer image is how you think the world sees you because of it. The world thinks I'm foolish.
Okay. And the life image.
That's the big narrative you built about life from that one event. Life is hard or I'll never get ahead.
And the other's image is about the other people involved.
Exactly. Authority figures can't be trusted. Friends will always let you down. You cycle through reliving the incident, trying to complete the emotional charge tied to each of those 4 images.
So how do you know when you're done? What does completion actually feel like?
That's step 4, the result. And it's not an intellectual thing where you decide, okay, I'm over it now. Your whole being just shifts. The emotional charge dissolves. The source says the memory does not feel juicy even to relive.
It loses its power.
Its emotional voltage is gone. You realize that image of yourself is no longer defining your present.
That's real clarity. But, as people start this, they naturally want guidance. But the sources say that real guidance often has to wait. Why is that?
Well, the sources give a pretty critical, maybe even cynical reason. A lot of people seek guidance because they're already convinced they're going to fail.
Yeah.
They need somebody to blame later on. They need a scapegoat, so the inevitable failure won't hurt them.
So the failure is already programmed in by the SDHD, and the teacher is just an emotional insurance policy.
That's the argument. Until you complete enough of your own patterns to get rid of that compulsion for failure, any guidance you get will just be misused or resisted. Completion removes the blame game.
And this must tie into that pattern of constant mental rehearsal, right? Where we're always planning for the future or replaying the past.
It's directly connected. We do that because we're afraid we can't face life spontaneously. The solution isn't to just try to stop planning. It's to work on the underlying patterns, the tiring and boring patterns of disappointment.
Once that power loses its charge, the rehearsal just stops on its own.
Exactly. You start to trust yourself to meet life as it comes.
I want to go back to that parent-child example.
Yeah.
Because it's so practical.
Yeah, so your daughter expresses a small fear. A parent's first thought is often rooted in their own SDHD. They're worried about their ability to cope, their future, their capacity to protect her.
So you're worrying more about your ability to handle the crisis than the actual crisis itself.
Right. So the process says you have to first complete with that self-fear inside you. Address your own agitation. Only then, when your own inner noise is gone, can you look at your daughter and confidently, calmly say, nothing will happen to you, dear.
Real help for others only comes after you've dealt with your own stuff internally.
That's the core idea.
Okay, so we got the practical steps.
Mm-hmm.
Let's zoom out. Why is this whole process of perpetual completion so specifically tied to being human?
This is where the sources use mythology as a kind of metaphor for the cosmic context. We look at a figure like Indra, the king of the gods, in his celestial realm, Devaloka.
And let's be super clear. Indra is not the goal here. The texts explicitly say he is not enlightened.
Correct. Indra is just a powerful being. He's mastered a lot of sciences to get power and authority, but he doesn't have true liberation. That's why he's always threatened by genuinely enlightened sages who could just create a new world and steal all his citizens.
And the really profound point here is that Indra and all these other powerful beings, they still need a human body to actually get enlightened. So why? Why is the human form the only vehicle for this?
It comes back to that duality you need for completion. The human body is precious because it's in this intermediate state. Higher level beings, the divas, are basically trapped in perpetual bliss.
Trapped in bliss.
Yeah, their senses are too refined. The sources say their ears and noses literally can't register pain. They only experience joy.
So they don't have the friction, the negative feedback they need to trace their patterns.
Exactly. And on the other end, you have lower level beings, the jivas, who can only experience pain and struggle. They don't have the capacity for that higher joy or bliss to see the big picture.
So it's only us, here in the middle.
Only the human body, in this realm called Buluka, the earth realm, has the possibility to experience both pain and joy. This duality, this whole spectrum, is the essential raw material for completion to even happen. You need both sides of the coin.
That gives this messy, difficult human life a kind of terrifying value. The difficulty isn't a mistake. It's the ingredient that makes freedom possible. A freedom even the king of the gods doesn't have.
That's it.
So for you listening, the main takeaway is that perpetual completion is a systematic, four-step process. You work backwards from your present agitation to the root images, and it promises to eliminate that optional mental story we call suffering. It leads to a state where, as the source puts it, the arrow of hurt doesn't even enter into you.
Because that core pattern of SDHD has just dissolved. The value prop... Finding a guide is precious, and missing this opportunity, that's just seen as the ultimate negligence.
And we'll leave you with one final thought to chew on. In the ancient myth of the turning of the Milky Ocean, that cosmic struggle for immortality, the pivot point in the center, Mount Meru, is said to represent Boloka, the earth, the human realm. So given that only the human body can actually facilitate liberation, could it be that the whole cosmic struggle, the turning of the Milky Ocean between good and evil, pain and bliss, is fundamentally centered on your experience right here, right now? Let you think about that. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.